I'm Jed Owen and operate 3 different self-storage facilities. One's right next door to our house, and that's 116 units, plus we are adding on 2 buildings to that, so add about 2/3 more square footage. And just the beginning of this year, we closed on buying someone else's self-storage facility, and we're in the midst of turning that around. Got them all on Storeganise. I've been really happy with that so far. None of them do we have employees on site, so it was important to me to be able to manage them from my phone, from my computer.
When you were looking for a software, what was important? What features were you looking for? Why ultimately did you settle where you did? And I guess, how are you utilizing that today?
Yes. So we always take picking our software pretty seriously. We run several businesses, and I'm of the belief that no software system is perfect. You kind of have to pick what works best with your limitations versus what's available. But we're also living in a very changing time with AI and the capabilities that offers. So when we first started looking for software, we had no background in storage besides the one facility that we had managed off a spreadsheet for years. So no prior experience, no one we knew that was using storage. So we kind of went into it with a blank slate of just looking at all the options. My brother, he's a software developer, so he was coming at it from a pretty technical side. I was coming at it from operations. I'm going to be the one in it every day. So we signed up for demos, you name it, across the board, certainly all the top ones. Dug into the features, trying to figure out even what we needed. We started with not even knowing what was available, what was possible, and just started narrowing it down from there. So we actually put quite a bit of time into it. A big thing for us was open access through an API. We really wanted that. We wanted to be able to own our data, have access to that. It's a huge thing. We wanted ease of use. Obviously, you're also looking at value. If money was no issue, that would also change things. So trying to find best value for what we're doing. So looked through a lot of different things, came down to just a couple options, ended up going with you guys, not really knowing if it was the right decision at that time. It was just like, this seems the best for now. So in a year, liked it. I learned so much since then, talked to so many people, heard a lot of complaints from other softwares. I have a good friend who has a facility down in Burnet, Texas. He had one of the leading softwares, kind of standard. Comparing notes, what's different, what's the same, what's better. And especially in the last year, when we looked at buying this new facility, a big part kind of came back to the API and the flexibility that it gives. There's very few softwares that have full open API. So I think that as we get further into the AI, being able to make your own customizations, your own software additions, and kind of customizing for your particular experience is going to be just more and more important, especially for us since we're somewhat versed and we're not too scared of doing that. So that majorly narrows down the softwares that are available.
Since you mentioned the API and AI as well, so how are you utilizing Storeganise's flexibility, the open API? There are a lot of no-code or low-code solutions out there and middleware systems out there. Yes. that you can use too. So even if you aren't a developer, you have absolutely some working knowledge, you can still utilize Storeganise's flexibility. How are you doing that?
Yeah, so it's kind of a journey. We started with just the simple, we were using make.io, but you could use Zapier. It's kind of a similar thing. We just used it to set up customized messaging to our folks. So there was plenty of times where it'd be like, hey, we're working on the gate, such and such is happening, just so you're aware, or holiday wishes, or we want to really trying to develop a warm relationship with our customers. So the first integrations were just simple email messaging that went beyond just the standard automated flows in the system. Then we moved to N8N to be able to host it ourselves, which again, like you're saying, it's just another version of Zapier, basically. So added in a few flows. A big thing that we just launched is doing our own gate control software that's full featured in terms of, if the payment doesn't go through after so many days, their gate code will be revoked. Each customer has their own unique gate code. If they pay their bill, it immediately comes back online. So full featured gate control, where instead of having to pay an additional software expense that's almost as much as our main PMS, we now own that completely. So we used Ubiquity, tied that in with our own middleware. So that's one way. And having that API access just gives us full control to do exactly what we want to do. So in the midst of that flow, connecting emails to do a custom designed email that sends them with their code that's really easy. We're going to add in text to that, which you integrate with Twilio. And there's just a lot of flexibility with that specifically. Honestly, most automations for most businesses are simple. And I think the simpler they are, the better. The flexibility of having the API is just that whatever you dream up to customize to your particular thing, you can do it.
So as you have a few facilities that come from different, one of them is a new build, some of them are existing facilities that may have been managed manually or outside of a modern solution in the past. What challenges have you faced? What hurdles have you hit? Things you maybe didn't expect up front, and I guess how have you mitigated those and got past those and kind of put that into the back of your mind for future expansion, future purchases.
So 2 different challenges we faced on 2 separate facilities. On the smaller one that had been running for years that we owned, but had just one of the office ladies had run off of a spreadsheet. The biggest challenge there was teaching the office lady how to utilize the new software. So that's always a challenge. And so most of my time was spent walking her through those first move-ins, those first move-outs, where to put the credit card, making sure everything was working and where she was comfortable with that. That was small enough. We had it all on a spreadsheet. We had the information and the history on the customers. So entering that in was not a problem. That went really smooth. On the facility we just bought, it's about 25,000 square feet. We didn't have the history of the people. And it wasn't even fully run off a spreadsheet. It was really run off of 2 banker boxes with handwritten contracts. So there wasn't even a spreadsheet to enter. So I literally had to call each person, figure out the status, were they still renting? Some of them had paid a year in advance. Some of them were a year behind. It was all over the place. So the challenge there was getting clean data. Once I had the clean data, it's pretty easy to upload into the system. If I was to do it again, I would have waited to transition to the software until I had the clean data. I started the software and put about half the data on it and then did all the rest manually. Would have saved myself a lot of headache if I had just limped through, just dealing with customers the old-fashioned, time-consuming way, and then uploaded everything in a clean batch. So big note to self on the next acquisition to clean data in makes your life so much easier.
What advice would you give to new owner operators or folks looking to modernize their system? What would you tell them, and lessons you've taken away from your time so far?
Yes, so I'm young, I'm new to the industry, only been in this a couple years, but from the time of starting with Storeganise, not knowing any other options, using that for a couple years, to then researching and saying, okay, I know this, and I know the advantages and the disadvantages. Am I missing anything? So I kind of restarted the search late last year, looked through a bunch of other softwares to compare it. I'm convinced that Storeganise is best positioned for kind of the future of software for storage. The take y'all have. I think it's the best version because of the flexibility, like we've been talking about, because of the API, because it's lightweight, robust, easy to use. You own your data. If you value those things, if you're wanting to Modernise if you're wanting to push kind of a tech-forward software that really prioritizes automated move-ins, automated move-outs, really making that flow next level, where I feel like the industry's going and should be going. I still feel like Storeganise is the best option for that. Our tech stack, so we have Storeganise is obviously our main source of truth for everything. We use N8N because it's open source and you can have full control of it, self-hosted. But you could use Zapier. I know that you'll have a great integration there. We've used that a little bit. You'll have all the a la carte add-ons. I think you'll call them add-ons with a lot of different options that seems to be very robust, and everything feedback I've gotten from folks has been excellent there. So I think all those things just are future-proofing for the changes that are the direction that it's going. I like that I own the payment processor. That was another big one we haven't talked about. Just keeping as much of that as possible as an owner-operator is very comforting and it feels like you own the business and you're not giving most of the control of your business to a company that may get acquired, that may change, and a lot of people feel like kind of the rug has been pulled out from under them with a lot of leading softwares. So all that has pointed me in this direction time and time again. So
having multiple sites, you have the flexibility with Storeganise versus some of the others to say, well, at this site, I want to try this access system. Yes. And at this site, maybe I want to experiment with Spider Door versus have my own. And you can try different things in different facilities, or if you acquire a facility that's on one thing, if you go buy a site tomorrow that's on OpenTech, you can still use it. You don't have to switch, right? It allows you to be flexible with your approach, how you can try different things at different sites with your tech stack. You can see if this bespoke gate system is going to work, and then before you roll it out to all of them. So one of the awesome things is just the flexibility. You can use the core software out of the box. It works great. We did it. I know from experience, no add-ons, no nothing. It works fantastic. It does all the things that need to be done. We got great leads from our website. That was a key part of filling up our units. But also, you have incredible flexibility. And now we've added on our own gate control system, our own kind of communications layer that adds on top of that. Tying in all those different things, you just have so many options where, we have one gate control system here. We have a totally different brand on the facility we just bought. And we are going to try a different approach there and see what works. And so having that flexibility, but the same software throughout. So when I'm managing it day in and day out, it's very simple, back end, very robust, but I can try all these different things. It's a huge advantage for us. Looking into the future-proofing your business, we released our AI connector on Storeganise. Yeah. Are you utilizing that today, or how do you foresee that working its way into your tech into the future?
I'm excited about it. I've not gotten a chance to jump into that, but I'm somewhat well-versed in those type of tools, so I'm excited for the possibility that holds.
What's your use case for AI today? Are you using it to help you develop and program, or?
So I'm currently using AI tools for our third facility. I used it to build our website, so to have a completely self-hosted website there. We used it to build our middleware for our gate software. My list of things to do with this new integration is making sure I'm not missing things. Anytime I'm feeling it more and more now that we have 3 facilities, it's easy to miss little things because you're just dealing with hundreds of customers. So make sure that I'm on top of it. So kind of to be able to give a report of how are we doing, where's the opportunity for growth, where's the opportunity, I need to check on this customer, we're seeing a pattern there. And we haven't even really touched revenue management. That's kind of the iteration that towards the end of this year I'm going to be delving into.
You had mentioned inheriting a site with an existing manager. How have you found resources for training, learning the software, learning Storeganise, and just getting up to speed and kind of ongoing solutions?
Yes. Support's a big thing with any software. And not just the fact that it's there, but how quickly you can access the correct answer and how quickly you can escalate to a human if you don't find that answer. And Storeganise has that helpful little box in the bottom left corner that I have jumped into many times, and you'll have that AI feature where you can search through the help documents very quickly. Quite often that leads in plain English. I just say what the problem is and it'll lead directly to that and solve it. And then there's the other button that's just email, and I've always gotten a reply very quickly with a very knowledgeable answer. So that's a big thing for us. So overall, yeah, it's critical. And you mentioned inheriting a site with a manager. It's also easy for her. She's in her 60s to go on there and grab answers. And she's emailed a couple times, gotten help back where she was able to be off to the races. So that's a big deal. And honestly, one of the elements I was looking at and trying to ascertain when we were looking at softwares throughout this whole process. So been very impressed with that.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you found yourself successful so far. A quick expansion.
So far.
Thank you very much, and
Yes, sir.
best of luck as you continue to grow.
Well, thank you.